Kia ora koutou, ko Mandy Hager aho no Kapiti Coast Aotearoa. Hello, I'm Mandy Hager. I'm a writer from New Zealand. I live on the Kapiti Coast here. I mainly write for young adults, and today I'm going to talk to you about my 2014 book, Singing Home the Whale, which was published by Penguin Random House in 2014. In 2015, it won the Margaret Mahy Book of the Year in our New Zealand Children's Book Awards here, and in 2016, it was named as an IBBY Honour Book. It's rather an unusual book. It's told from 2 points of view. One is an orca whale, and one is a teenage boy called Will. One of the things I love about this book is that each time the voice changes and they go backwards and forwards, there's an amazing drawing to orientate you as to whose voice it is. So every time that it's a sea-based voice, a whale, it has these amazing sea-based drawings. Every time it is a human voice, it has these amazing land-based drawings. The best part is these were done by my daughter Rose. So, off we go. Chapter 1, The Chronicle. I was born on a night the moon drew the sea high towards her face. As the sea lifted my mother, I slid into the tide tail first, the cord snapping as she nudged me skywards to the icy air. Below me rang my family's welcome, lapping love around me as I nosed towards my mother's milk. For those first few hours, days, weeks, months, I clung to her kind company, never roving from the reach of her all-seeing eyes. When we travelled in our group, I nestled in the curve of her slick satin side, her slipstream aiding any feeble efforts of my own. At 2 months my top teeth broke through, by 4 the lower row took root. My first flesh food was salty squid. I still recall its death row tickle on my tongue. It took some time to learn the breadth of all my family's store of sounds. Their songs told tales of times long past, their wails our wash of woes. They showed me how to pulse our notes, to cut through the great swaths of sea, how to send clicks and calls, to send the secrets of the other beings who share our sea-bound world. But the markers that made plain my family's moods I never had to learn. Oh no, these I always knew. Each yearning bleeds an inborn stippled charge, and when it hits I feel it as my own. Right from the start I was a seeker, wanted to explore the workings of the waters we called home. I glided between peaks and spurs, rocky spines and boiling vents that bubbled from the belly of the ocean's core. I was a minnow in my mother's clan, pandered to by parents, uncles, aunts, and with my cousins by my side, we cruised through coral coves, skimmed stands of kelp and bladderwrack, and swam through swaying seagrass meadows that split to single stems as we eased through. Our days were filled with feeding, feeling, floating amid the current's great convergence and the pull of moon and tide. We goaded flying fish, dangled driftwood from our snouts, racing, chasing, breaching. Such playing taught me how to grace the gifts of my sleek shape. From the rush of air above to the press of trenches, pits and chasms in the lightless lands below, I wondered at the beauty. I felt no one had ever known such sweet fortune as the likes of me. So if a ship stormed through the waters where we passed, I found myself drawn to its throaty call. I paid no heed to my dear mother's fear. In my eyes she was all-powerful, while the hungry ones who trod the decks seemed small and weak. I could not grasp how they might ever do us harm. My mother said that in the early times we watched the hungry ones when they first crowded to the coast. She said we listened and we learned and matched their sounds with what was trickling from their thoughts. But we lost this melding of our minds, must drop by drop relearn if we are once again to live in peace. I am the Chronicle, and this will be my last song. Like the ones who came before me and the ones who will come after, in my final hours it is my duty know my joy, to share all I have learned in my long swim through life. Chapter 3. An Ancient Ailing Bag. When we left the white world for the warmer waters in my second year, we young ones were a brazen band, given to rough and tumble games. Our elders' betters bore us, for the most part, with only the odd side swipe from a flipper or fluke to hinder our hot-headed play. I learned the joys of cruising in the company of the ones I love, the shared rhythm that settles in once we are underway. Warm bodies brush past in casual caress, feelings and minds merge. It is this harmony that forms the backbone of our world, connects us to each other and to all else. This too I learned. Then came the day my mother taught me to track through the seas. There is a pulse, she sent, that weaves its way beneath the waves and the land, pathways of pulse, north, south, east, west, as charged as the gleam that watches white world's midnight skies. Her steady eyes met mine. Clear your mind now. Try to hold off other thought. Listen, listen and feel. At first all I felt was the twitch of my tail and the hammer of my heart and the crush of the current in the sea's embrace. Nothing else. I wiped away all thought and drew a mighty breath and dived. 5 times I dived and 4 times failed to feel the planet's pulse. But the 5th time, the 5th time, it came upon me suddenly, a feeling like fingers of kelp sliding along my spine. Then every pulsing part of me fell into line with it, and I could feel its tingling charge. I raced from one pulse to the next, reaching with pure delight, plain foolishness. The current I was chasing drew me back towards the ice. I did not hear my mother's worried warnings until at last she overtook and barred my way. How long had I been speeding through the sea? So long my cherished clan was simply sprigs of spume. My mother called the clan to tell them I was safe. Swim on, she sent, we'll catch you up. My aunt bounced back and offered to return. No need, be happy, he has felt the pulse. The whole group sang with pleasure and I plumped with pride. So when I heard the distant drumming of a ship, I sped to it, arguing with my mother, wheedling, pleading to take a closer look. I ignored the worry washing off her if she tried to steer me back on course. I would have none of it. I was a fat little calf who thought he owned the seas. Just as the ship was well within my sight, crawling with hungry ones up on the deck, my mother bit me by the fluke, not hard, but firm enough for me to falter. Can you not feel the threat? Her thoughts were steeped with such a dread, it haunts me still. But did I listen? No, not I. I spy-hopped, splaying fins to hover upright, and to my never-ending shame, exposed. Dive, my mother moaned, but I was too intent on trying to read the twinkling lights now trained on me. She knocked me off my axis. In the name of the Great Mother, dive! Already there was a shift in the thrumming of the ship, as if its heart was speeding up. While seabirds squabbled in its wake, it changed its course and started making straight for us. I heaved in air and dived down after her, seeking out her slipstream as her tail threshed to pick up speed. I had no chance of keeping up, was bludgeoned in the backwash of her wake. She circled back and clutched me to her side, and I could feel every muscle, every sinew strain beneath her silken skin as she steered me on. Hush, she sent. Put your will into the task and do not look behind. A fearsome pounding popped the air, growing ever louder until it drowned her urgings out. My mother's eyes had never shone so bright, as if by force of will she could conceal me in their protective pool. But as I spat my blowhole open to expel the stale air, the maelstrom roared right above us. I risked one backward glance. The ship was speeding to us fast, but worse. A whirling creature buzzed low to the sea, the source of this unearthly roar. My mother's wail was like the winter winds that howl through white world's ice. She pushed me down, tail slapping, as she tried to bolster me beneath her bulk. A crack of thunder split the sky. I felt her jolt and heard a grunt, read her shock before she rolled. Time crawled so slow I heard the water shift as blood bloomed from her broad black back. I was flummoxed by the pain and desperation flooding off her, circled, calling, crying, as the sea stained red. I nudged her, stroked her, pressed her flippers to my flesh. Go, she groaned, leave me now, but I could not. So rising from her pain, she fought, lobtailing with the full force of her fluke, before she shot skywards to confront this flying foe. Mid-breach the thunder struck again. It tore into her lower jaw, smashed bone and flesh right down her throat. The ship was nearly on us now. Mother, come, mother, please. I nuzzled, seeking comfort, but no milk came forth. Instead, I felt the terror as her pain-filled heart pumped out her life. Tell them, warn them, go! As if this plea stole her last leaking air, I felt her shock as something detonated deep inside. She shuddered once, her heartbeat stopped. The very motion of the sea stopped too. I couldn't understand her silence, couldn't grasp the void. I circled, prodding, pleading. When she failed to answer back, I lost all track of time. I hid beneath my mother's blood shroud as the flying fiend descended to the ship. The hungry ones fired hooks into her flesh and hauled her up its shell-encrusted side. Blood sweated from her skin, red against white, crimson against black. They hung her by her tail, her shattered face lapped by the swell. She looked so small, reduced. One thrust a blade into her and heaved on it, stiff-armed, the tool splitting her belly open fore to aft, all the workings of her bundled out. Ah, forgive me. I had wished for my last song to be as calm as those of the wise chronicles who came before. I have told it many times without this hurting heart, shared all my secrets, but this time the memory bobs around me like a bloated corpse. Grief never leaves, nor pain, nor the licking loneliness of loss. They only ever limp towards accommodation. And so you see me as I truly am, an ancient ailing bag of wretchedness and thorny love, still pricked by anger and regrets. I am the unwise, wise one, tasked with passing on my past. Life flees as fast as foam upon a wind-swept wave. Be still, bear with me, travellers. These are the wanderings of a dying mind. After the ship had fled, I drifted in a nightmare world of wind-borne tricks. I'd hear my mother call and race towards the sound, only to find nothing, no one in the formless sea. Time and time again those taunts would snare me. Time and time again I ended up alone and wished the hungry ones would take me too. But on the fourth day I sensed land, and I was torn between two tides of thought. The urge to hide did battle with the need to rest with something solid at my back. Rest one. The sun rose to full force as I passed landforms skinned with grass and trees. Beneath the leaves small buildings blinked. I hugged the coast and wished this world was fashioned from the pressing of warm bodies. I craved my mother and my clan. I could not eat. Each time I tried to swallow, my mother's death swelled in my throat. Sluggishness stalked me now. I rounded still another spit of land and thought those teasing trickster winds were back. I heard a song. It soared, tuneful and fully voiced, a sweeping airborne song that steeped into my skin. Its bleakness spoke to me, its grief akin to mine. Drawn by a need I had no strength to fight, I slipped into a sheltered bay. Lush trees lined rocky outcrops, a stony beach lay to one side. The sunlight licked the leaves deep coral gold. I edged around a shingle bank, the unknown song enthralling as I rose for air. That's when I saw the boy. I hope you enjoyed this. If you would like to read more, you can read it again, my book, Singing Home the Whale. I also hope that those of you still in your bubble during this time stay safe and well, and remember that in doing this, we're sharing love for everyone worldwide. My love to you. Kia ora.